Hi everyone, and welcome to the 12th webinar, or 13th, sorry, in the AWC3's webinar series about watercourse crossings. So my name is Daniel Monaco, and I'll be acting as host of the webinar today. So before getting into the webinar, I just want to give a brief introduction to AWC3 in case it's your first webinar in the series. So AWC3 is the Alberta Watercourse Crossing Collaborative. And it's a not-for-profit organization whose primary objective is to facilitate information transfer around the issue of watercourse crossings in Alberta and their impact on native fish species. So that's what this webinar series is all about, is sharing information from subject matter experts and trying to get that information out to as many people as possible. So since we have received some questions about this, I want to let everybody know that the webinar can be used for continuing competency credits for professional associations. It counts as a half hour of credits and has been approved by most major professional associations. So if that's something you're hoping to take advantage of, please keep your receipts and your registration confirmation emails. And if you have any questions about this, you can email us at info@awccc.ca. So today's webinar is about roadway watercourse crossing management in the Boreal region. And we have Paul Harrington from Alberta Energy Regulator with us as a presenter. So to give a bit of a background on today's presenter, Paul Harrington moved to Alberta in 2001 and completed a Bachelor of Applied Conservation Enforcement. Paul has been working with the Water Act since 2005 as an inspector with Alberta Environment for 9 years, where he focused most of his attention on the Medicine Hat and Calgary flood responses and Water Act compliance. Paul has now been with the Alberta Energy Regulator for 6 years, where his current duties are supporting the development of AER water and fisheries surveillance program and inspection staff knowledge of the Water Act. Paul is also an active member of the Watercourse Crossing Management Directive Steering Committee. So before passing things off to Paul, if anyone has questions throughout the presentation, you can submit them through the GoToWebinar program. I will be compiling questions from the question chat, and we will go through those once the presentation is done. So I would ask that any questions being asked pertain directly to the topic of the presentation so that our presenter and panelists can answer those to the best of their abilities. We're doing things a little bit differently today, so bear with me with the technological side of things. This is a pre-recorded webinar, so I'm hoping that there are no hiccups. But if there are issues with audio, please let me know through the question box and I'll try to resolve those as quickly as possible. So let's get this going.
Thank you, Daniel. Welcome, everyone. I'm Paul Harrington, one of the water and fisheries inspectors with the Alberta Energy Regulator. Thank you for joining my webinar on roadway watercourse crossings in the Boreal Natural Region. Today, I want to provide an overview of the AER's participation within the Roadway Watercourse Crossing Management Directive, our role as a regulator, and discuss the development of the Boreal Roadway Watercourse Crossing Inspection Form and Flowchart. To get started, let's review the legislation. That governs the AER and provides our jurisdiction to support the Watercourse Crossing Management Directive. In 2013, the Responsible Energy Development Act, REDA, established the AER. REDA sets out our mandate, structure, powers, duties, and functions. The following regulations under REDA provide more details about the AER's legislative framework, including principles governing the transition of the ERCB to the AER and the transfer of jurisdiction over the specified enactments to the AER. Energy resource enactments are the acts, regulations, and rules governing energy resource development in Alberta that the AER administers. Specified enactments are the acts and regulations that we administer with respect to energy resource activities. Alberta government departments administer these acts and regulations in relation to other kinds of activities. The Public Lands Act and Water Act are the main governing pieces of legislation for watercourse crossings across the province. The need for change. Understanding the potential effects. The need for change. Understanding the potential effects watercourse crossings have on fish species success the AER decided to pursue membership of the Watercourse Crossing Management Directive. As a regulator of oil and gas water activities across Alberta, the AER aligned its watercourse crossing inspection efforts with the directive in order to support provincial fish management strategies. As you can see from the 2018 Alberta Fish Sustainability Index maps provided, the 3 native fish species FSI data illustrated show depleting populations. Athabasca rainbow trout are not shown here, but they are also listed as high risk or very high risk. An alarming percentage of the huck-8s that these 4 native species inhabit are functionally extirpated, seen in black, or listed as high risk to very high risk, seen in orange and red. These FSI maps do not provide much optimism for these fish species populations to change for the better without coordinated efforts from all stakeholders. In 2015, the AER officially became a member of the Watercourse Crossing Management Directive and began regulator representation on the Directive Steering Committee. In 2006, the AER Water and Fisheries Surveillance Program focused its watercourse crossing inspection efforts within Phase 1, the Foothills region. Between 2016 and 2019, the AER completed over 1,000 watercourse crossing inspections. Over this time period, the need to extend the inspection program into Phase 2, the Boreal region, was realized as crossing owners were requesting a process to complete inspections, and the Watercourse Crossing Steering Committee required data to understand the influence watercourse crossings were having on the boreal water bodies. Initial AER inspections in Alberta's northeast boreal region using the Foothills Inspection Manual proved to be ineffective and did not represent the characteristics of boreal fish-bearing water bodies. With the support of the Watercourse Crossing Management Directive Steering Committee, the AER coordinated a multi-stakeholder task team to develop a boreal inspection form. Entirely through remote meetings, the task team was assigned tasks to analyze the GOA Roadway Watercourse Crossing Manual to determine how a boreal inspection procedure could maintain the intent of the GOA Roadway Watercourse Crossing Manual while addressing the unique boreal characteristics. The task team conducted several online meetings to analyze the success of the Foothills inspection procedure and how a similar procedure could work in the boreal. 2 separate sessions conducted in the Slave Lake area provided necessary field testing for the task team's inspection form. Boreal inspections require a process similar to the Foothills Manual that allows users an efficient means to identify potential fish habitat and critical assessment points to ensure fish passage. The key to successfully developing an inspection procedure required participation from key stakeholders that possess extensive knowledge and experience with the Foothills Manual and boreal water bodies in relation to the fish species present. The AER task team participants consisted of fisheries biologists, inspectors under Water and Public Lands Act, limnologists, regulatory applications, and a senior environmental advisor. Alberta Environment and Parks, Alberta Transportation, Ducks Unlimited Canada, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, the Foothills Stream Crossing Partnership, and Woodlands North representatives provided the required expertise to support the boreal inspection form development. The main goal of the boreal task team was to understand the differences and similarities when comparing Foothills fluvial streams, i.e. fish bearing, to boreal fish habitat. The ability to determine fish habitat while conducting field inspections provides any watercourse crossing assessor the efficiency to quickly inspect and collect critical habitat data. Understanding boreal water bodies and fish habitat characteristics was key to develop a representative inspection form. The diverse experience of the task team allowed for a deep comparison of water bodies within these 2 natural regions of Alberta. It quickly became apparent that the low gradient water bodies of the Boreal would require a new inspection process. For the next few slides, I'd like to outline the task team's review of the Foothills Watercourse classification flowchart. That is the key assessment to determine foothills fish habitat, otherwise known as fluvial. From the 2018 AAR Boreal inspections, it was obvious that the Foothills Manual Watercourse classification flowchart would omit a large amount of boreal fish-bearing habitat from being assessed for fish passage. I know some of you are thinking, but there are fluvial streams in the Boreal. How are they assessed? In order to simplify the inspection process, fluvial streams identified in the Boreal region will be assessed using the Foothills Manual Inspection Form. Identification of a well-defined watercourse channel. The first step in the Foothills Manual flowchart is to identify if the water body has a well-defined channel. As you can see in this crossing north of Bonnyville, it does not exhibit a well-defined watercourse channel of 50 meters or more. If a defined channel is present, the tannin-colored water, emergent vegetation, and lack of access for the assessor make an accurate channel assessment extremely difficult. As per the Foothills Manual flowchart, this water would be assessed as no channel and no further assessment of fish passage would be required. Note, foraged fish were observed at this crossing when the photo was taken. The Foothills Manual indicated that presence of fish during assessment results in a stream classification of fluvial and the fish passage assessment is required. The task team decided that the same rule of fish presence is required for the Boreal. The task team also wanted to ensure that species type of fish did not matter. If foraged species like stickleback and other minnow species are identified, then the assessor will conduct the fish passage assessment. According to the Foothills Manual flowchart, if 50 meters or greater channel exists, the next step is to determine if the water body is fluvial or non-fluvial. Fluvial equals stream power great enough to transport and arrange bed materials that create a sequence of pools and riffles. Boreal fish habitat is not just confined to fluvial classified streams, as fish are present in many types of wetland complexes. Boreal low gradient water bodies did not provide consistent fluvial characteristics such as pools, riffles with regular spacing, and an average channel width of greater than 0.6 meters. As well, the presence of organic bridges are common in these described water bodies. Uniform channel width. The next step, as per the Foothills Manual flowchart, is to determine if the water body has a uniform channel where the maximum channel width is less than 3 times the minimum channel width. Lack of defined channels, emergent aquatic vegetation, and vast bankful widths prove that the uniform channel width was inconclusive, providing evidence of potential fish habitat. Channel uniformity was not an accurate indicator for potential fish habitat at this Boreal location, as foraged fish species were again present during the time of assessment. Bed material is also an important factor in determining fluviality in Foothills water bodies. Boreal water bodies that are part of wetland complexes often exhibit less granular mineral substrates such as gravel and cobble and are characterized by organic and peat with increased presence of aquatic vegetation. Many Boreal water bodies assessed exhibited little to no mineral soil outside the zone of influence of the crossing structures. Be careful not to identify migrating mineral soil from the road fill into the water body as fluvial processes. Although Boreal bed materials greatly exceeded the 50% silt and loam test, the water bodies assessed provided evidence of foraged fish species. Other larger sport fish species can also inhabit water bodies with these increased organic bed material levels. As previously discussed, the watercourse characteristics of fluvial water bodies in the Boreal will be the first thing the user will assess. If the water body meets these requirements for being fluvial, then the assessment will be completed for a fluvial water body as required in the Foothills Watercourse Crossing Inspection Manual, utilizing the same inspection form. If the water body is not fluvial, the determination of an active channel is required. Active channel is defined in the Code of Practice for watercourse crossings as those parts of bed and banks of a water body that are without terrestrial vegetation. The determination of 50 meters of active channel to determine fish habitat has been tested and appears to be the most relevant single indicator for accurate determination of fish-bearing boreal water bodies. Active channel can also be used if the water body is dry, as the exposed channel will not show growth of terrestrial vegetation within the channel, supporting the theory that channels with water present most of the year prohibit terrestrial vegetation growth. Several reasons may exist for an active channel to be dry: beaver dams, natural slumping, or other man-made influences that the assessor should try to determine. If the boreal water body does not exhibit 50 meters of active channel, then the fish passage assessment is not completed and the crossing is assessed for the other 6 inspection fields. During the analysis of the Foothills Manual in relation to boreal water bodies, the task team identified that flow assessment is one of the largest issues with watercourse crossings in boreal wetland complexes. Water movement through boreal wetlands is essential to promote healthy wetlands, support fish life stages, and increase water quality, among many other benefits. A unique boreal difference from the foothills is the need to ensure large wetlands are not confined to a single conduit to maintain flow. In foothills fluvial water bodies, multiple culverts is not desirable, as a single culvert or bridge structure should be used to eliminate constricting channel width. The assessor is required to determine the primary culvert that is located in the active channel that would promote fish passage. As long as a primary culvert for fish passage exists, multiple crossings situated within the wetland complex are encouraged to maintain natural flow. Another unique addition to the boreal inspection form is the assessment of water elevation and impoundment. In order to ensure an adequate flow regime, water elevation and the 3 key indicators presented above will allow the assessor to determine flow and potential sources of blockage. Boreal inspections conducted by the AER, the Boreal Task Team, and data provided by ABMI noted that there were very few hanging or elevated culverts existing in water bodies that were not identified as truly fluvial. High percentages of crossings in boreal wetland complexes proved to be highly susceptible to blockages, with the most common culprit being beaver activity. Crossing owners are required to monitor their crossings to ensure flow is maintained and fish passage is available. Best management practices for crossing owners would be to ensure routine monitoring of the crossing locations and to determine a maintenance schedule for beaver debris removal. A species that was once near extirpation is now a thriving resident throughout most of Alberta. The Water Act does allow landowners adjacent to water bodies to remove beaver dams. Culvert maintenance is a constant struggle for crossing owners. Beaver dams outside the 50-meter zone of influence of culvert ends are deemed natural and not long-term, and removal is not required to restore flow. I do want to take a second and remind everyone that the ministerial regulations were updated as of December 2019. The amendment to the WMR no longer has a green zone watercourse crossing exemption. This amendment ensures that any water body in the province that is frequented by fish is no longer exempt from obtaining authorization, unless the proposed activity, such as installation, maintenance, replacement, and removal, meets the exemption in the WMR. Notification under the Code of Practice for watercourse crossing is required. For more information of exemptions under the Water Act, please review Schedule 1 of the Water Ministerial Regulations. Beaver devices are used extensively across the province. Crossing owners installing these devices need to ensure that the device design has been demonstrated not to impede fish passage as per the Master Schedule of Standards and Conditions under the Public Lands Act. Regular monitoring of crossing locations is the best defense to ensure the crossings are functioning to their design capacity. For this presentation, I have highlighted the major differences between the Foothills and Boreal Roadway Watercourse Crossing inspection forms and flowcharts. The items presented today will hopefully provide insight to the challenges the Boreal region exhibits for resource managers and crossing owners. With this knowledge, you'll be able to utilize both inspection forms throughout the Foothills and Boreal to ensure required data is collected to ensure the directive's success. Next steps. The Directive Steering Committee will be completing an inspection manual to support the Boreal Watercourse Crossing inspection and flowchart. The Directive Steering Committee will also continue to review the Boreal inspection data to ensure it supports the directive's goals. The AER will continue to complete watercourse crossings inspections throughout the Boreal region. The AER Steering Committee members will continue to provide remediation planning and review. And the AER will complete the software tool designs to support watercourse crossing inspections and remediation efforts. As mentioned earlier, the AER has created 2 software programs to assist in the inspection and remediation of watercourse crossings. The inspection tool prioritizes Huck 8 watersheds, identifies potential watercourse crossings, and provides a predictive modeling component to provide inspectors a list of all crossings that are likely to have concerns. The watercourse crossing identification tool takes all crossings in the province and is able to narrow it down to high-risk areas, significantly reducing inspectors' administrative time. This tool is only accessible to internal AER staff at this time. The AER Watercourse Crossing Reclamation Prioritization Tool. The Reclamation Tool is a separate entity from the Watercourse Crossing Identification Tool and is solely focused on identifying high-priority remediation areas. The Reclamation Tool takes all inspection data provided to identify priority crossings for remediation. The tool will calculate the upstream distance that would potentially be opened up upon remediation. This tool is actually an interactive document rather than a tool and requires accurate, up-to-date inspection data to provide an accurate output. Crossing owners can use this annually after their inspection and remediation activities occur to determine the status of the watersheds they have crossings in. The reclamation tool is ready for external use. However, organizational approval is still required as this was recently completed. The AER I want to ensure the following groups receive a special thank you for all their support in making the Boreal inspection form and flowchart development success. Alberta Biodiversity Monitoring Institute, ABMI, the Digital Transformation and Business Development Group at the Alberta Energy Regulator, Alberta Environment and Parks, Alberta Transportation, Ducks Unlimited Canada, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Foothill Stream Crossing Partnership, Let's Go Outdoors, Woodlands North, and all the Watercourse Crossing Management Directive industry members and service providers. Please see the next page for a listing of all the members. Thank you for your time today.
All right, great. So thanks everyone for bearing with me as I tried to sort through the technical issues there. I'm sorry that the audio seemed to cut out about a second after every slide started, so I had to kind of go back and forth to get it to play properly, but it seemed to go through pretty well. There was one slide that I'm not sure the audio worked on totally, so I don't know if Paul, if you want to maybe comment on that slide. It was this one here.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the reclamation prioritization tool will focus on, well, you can focus on one Huck 8 at a time if you like. And it is populated, like I said, from the inspection data that's provided. So it will show where the crossings of concerns are, where there's possible blockages. And so the 294 kilometers of upstream habitat blocked, that is from non-compliant crossings that currently have blockage issues. So this example, it shows that there's actually 15 companies in that Huck 8 that are crossing owners, and there's actually 40 crossings that are causing the blockages.
All right, great, thanks.
So it is hot off the press. Goggin just finished it last week, so it's new to us, but we thought we'd provide that today just to show you some of the software work we're doing.
All right, great, thanks. So let's go back to the end of the presentation here. Yeah, so just to give everyone, sorry, the audio is playing here and I don't know how to get it to stop. Okay, it stopped. Yeah, so we're going to move on to the Q&A portion now. Just before we move ahead, I'm going to put up a quick poll that people can answer just by clicking on the responses on your screen. This will give everyone about a minute to get your questions in because I'm not seeing too many of them coming in just yet. So I'll just launch that really quick. There we go. So I'll give everyone about a minute to do that before we move on to the Q&A. All right, that's been about a minute, so it looks like about 35% is from consulting, and then the other two leading ones are government and industry together. So that's good to know. Yeah, so we have about half an hour for questions right now. So we have Paul Harrington, the presenter of today's webinar, to answer questions, but we also have Cameron Ames and Mike Hunka with us. So maybe I'll let each of them introduce themselves so that we all know who's here.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, I'm Cameron Ames. I'm an inspector with the Alberta Energy Regulator out of Red Deer, and I've been working close with Paul and Mike and many of the others on these watercourse crossings.
And Mike Hunka, I'm a fisheries biologist with the AER.
All right, great, thanks. So yeah, we'll move into the Q&A portion now. So the first question that we have here is, do you have any examples of beaver control devices that are approved for use in Alberta?
Currently, I'm unaware of an actual approved device, as many attempts by crossing owners to construct their own devices that work well or are being used. However, the crossing owner would have to provide evidence that it does maintain fish passage upon request.
Yeah, and I would just add that that has to be like peer-reviewed, publicly available information as well, Paul.
All right, great. Next question. I take it that AER watercourse crossing reclamation prioritization tool that just needs organizational approval means AER or AEP organizational approval, not approval of those companies wanting to use it. So asking about the tool and what the approval process is there.
Yeah, again, it's definitely in the early stages, but that's correct. It's looking more for internal organization approval.
All right. So this next question, someone is asking if a link can be sent out to the Boreal inspection form.
Yeah, I can you can email me directly, or if you want, the aer.wcc@aer.ca. If you email that, there's an auto response, and it will provide you with a full watercourse crossing remediation directive package, and the new Boreal inspection flowchart and form are attached in there.
Yeah, and I'll just add that this webinar will be, the webinar and the Q&A portion will be distributed after to everybody who has registered for the webinar through email. So this information will be provided in there. So if you're not able to write that down, that will be provided to all of you via email. So you can expect that in the next few days. I think I cut you off, Paul.
Nope. No, I was just going to say that one of the last slides there, actually, the audio cut out. It was indicating that that website or that email address can be used for an auto reply to get the package.
Okay. I think it should actually. Not sure if everyone's seeing. It looks like the poll is still up. Hang on 1 second. Okay, I'm not sure why the poll might be still showing for some people, but anyway, yeah, we'll send this information out via email. The next question is it possible to just use the Boreal form and include fluvial, non-fluvial identification as well as substrate, since that is the only thing not on the Boreal form?
We've talked about maybe using the Boreal form in the foothills for wetland type of complexes, but we haven't thought about using the Boreal form throughout the province. There's a few more actual differences between the two inspection forms once you get into it. Really today I just wanted to get the highlights of the differences between the Boreal and the fluvial foothills and Boreal regions. But yeah, there is some other differences. There's definitely, we're not focused on substrate in the Boreal as it wasn't a good indicator of potential fish habitat.
Yeah, and I would just maybe add to that, Paul, too, is the preference is for in the foothills region where we have fluvial watercourses, we are using the original inspection form that was released with the directive. It is the Boreal was tailored specifically to the Boreal region. There is going to be fluvial watercourses in the Boreal where we also still want you using the original inspection form for the foothills in those areas.
All right, thanks. The next question, are these inspections solely tied to the AER or all road disposition holders?
Yeah, the AER, as a steering committee member, we had the capacity to work on this Boreal inspection form and flow chart, And so it's not tied just to us. It's obviously we benefit from it as well, so our inspectors can use it for their risk programs. But the intention was that that will be the inspection form and flow chart to use throughout the province, no matter crossing owner type, if it's a disposition, etc. It's for everybody's use.
Thanks. Next question is that you mentioned that even if a channel is less than 50 meters in length, if fish are observed, and the crossing is treated as fluvial, but this is not reflected in the flow chart you reviewed. Will the flow chart be modified to reflect this?
Are you speaking towards in regards to the Boreal inspection form? The 50-meter channel is just to determine if it's active or not. So I guess once with use, and we've tested it quite a bit, it seemed to work well, and I don't think it'll be modified. But we do want, after each field inspection, we do want to assess the data and the success of the form and flow chart, and if changes need to be made, then obviously we're open to that.
All right, great. So someone is asking about the recordings. So the recordings links to the recordings on the GoToWebinar page should be sent out with the thank you email. I haven't been taking care of that personally, so I'll have to follow up with that after the meeting, or after the webinar, sorry. So I'll get back to you on that, and I'm hoping that we'll get those out to everyone shortly. The next question, is there a map showing the cutoff between the Boreal and the foothills area?
Yeah, there's lots of maps out there. Basically use LiDAR to determine the transition between those natural areas. And there's lots of information on GOA website. I believe Ducks Unlimited Canada has maps of it. Yeah, so that's definitely not difficult to obtain.
All right, thanks. So there was a comment that was made here that is a follow-up to one of the previous questions. So the question that was being asked about whether or not the presence of fish affects the way that the flow chart, like the outcome of the flow chart. So the person is saying that the presence of the fish is not currently a decision point in the flow chart. So like you said, it has to do with active channels. So I don't know if you want to comment on that further.
Yeah, like the fluvial, the foothills fluvial inspection form of flow chart, we're trying to ensure there's a lot of similarities, and people that use that and are familiar with that foothills process, that aligns well with the Boreal. And one of the key factors when you go through the foothills fluvial manual indicates that fish presence trumps everything. So if you see fish, you then treat it as potential fish habitat and do the fish passage assessment. The one thing we wanted to make clear with the Boreal is that we're identifying forage fish species as fish, not just sport fish. So we just wanted to make that, identify that during this presentation so it was clear. In the manual, we kind of, with the demands that we had and the need to move into the Boreal, we realized we were kind of working backwards. We developed the form and the flow chart first, and now we're going to basically reverse engineer and work with the steering committee to develop a manual.
All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so we'll give everyone a couple of minutes still. We do have 20 more minutes dedicated to this Q&A, so if people have questions, then feel free to submit those through the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. So we'll give it a couple of minutes, and if there aren't any more questions, I guess we can end early today. I guess I also want to remind everybody that if you do have questions after the fact, you can always send an email either to Paul Harrington directly or send an email to info@awccc.ca, and we'll include those questions in the Q&A transcript that will be filled out and distributed after the webinar.
Yeah, and I want to stress, if you guys have any questions or you want to discuss the Boreal Task Scheme project and how we came to our conclusions, where we have more time to sit down and discuss actual data obtained, then feel free to email or call me. We'd love to talk about that. And again, the aer.wcc@aer.ca email address. Yeah, you can get that auto reply. It has been a bit finicky, but I think we got the technical difficulties ironed out, and there's a lot of information for anybody that's interested in this watercourse crossing management directive. And I apologize for me repeating myself at every slide. We were having issues with the audio. Wasn't as easy as we thought.
Yeah, that was kind of my issue going back and forth, so I do apologize for that. So I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, so I guess we'll end this early. So I'd like to thank today's presenter, Paul Harrington. Thank you to everybody who attended the webinar, and we hope that you'll join us for some of the other presentations over the next few weeks. So our next webinar in the series will be taking place this Thursday on June 4th at 1 p.m., where we will have Bruce Nielsen from Woodlands North giving a presentation on ecological best management practices for watercourse crossing repair, replacement, and restoration. So if you enjoyed this webinar, we encourage you to look at the other webinars scheduled as part of the series on our GoToWebinar page and on the awccc.ca website, and register for some of those other presentations. So thank you again to Paul for presenting to us today, and I hope to see everyone attending some of our future webinars. Stay safe and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.